The first episode of Chainsaw Man, which covers the first chapter of the manga, sets up Denji's main character arc for the rest of the series, or at least all of part 1. In this video, I want to highlight the most important aspects of the first episode so that anime-onlys might be able to focus on them more clearly, and from that, have an easier time understanding what I think are some of the central themes of Chainsaw Man. No spoilers for anything not in the anime. First, Chainsaw Man has some important motifs which are introduced in this chapter. Most importantly, in my opinion, are control, dreams, and loneliness. I'll start with control. This element is probably the most obvious, as it's central to the actual plot of the episode. Denji is controlled by the Yakuza, forced to do dangerous work for them under threat of violence in order to pay back a debt which will never be paid off. Later, the Yakuza are turned into zombies and are controlled by the zombie devil. In the first situation, Denji is strangely accepting of his circumstances, with no hope or drive to change his life for the better. He has this demon chainsaw dog thing, and not once does he even think about trying to rebel against the Yakuza, or just run away and escape them. Of course, it's not exactly likely that Denji would actually better himself by trying to rebel, but it's the fact that he doesn't even consider it that's important. The reason for his acceptance is shown best in this scene, where he tells Pochita that their food for the day is a single slice of bread. Denji has this positive attitude towards his terrible circumstances because the fact that he is alive at all is a miracle. It's a mindset almost similar to stoicism, or maybe the concept of ignorance being bliss, as Denji is able to live his life without constantly despairing over his lack of freedom by convincing himself that he is satisfied with how his life is and how the system is, and that he can do nothing to change it other than what the people who control him tell him to do. In a situation where it was truly impossible to make any improvement, having such an attitude would definitely help the mental health of individuals who would otherwise be conscious of their suffering. But always having that attitude blinds Denji to the injustice he faces and the potential for escape. All his mindset really does is keep him in his current circumstances, obeying his masters. As the Yakuza boss Guy says, Denji always does what he's told. Denji is doing everything he does in order to pay off his debt and become free, but it should be clear to the viewer that this is impossible. The system is designed so that Denji will never pay off his debt, and he will be working for them until he dies. Denji even realizes this, and yet he still goes along with what they tell him to do. This all points to something deeper about his character. Denji is too willing to exist in an unfair, oppressive system and is not inclined to see ways in which it could be better for him, even when he is aware that it is hurting him or preventing him from achieving his dreams. Dreams as a concept are very important in Chainsaw Man. At the start of this first episode, Denji's dreams are just things for him to imagine, not goals to be accomplished. When the basic concept of freedom is a far-off uncertainty, all other personal goals become fantasies, and so Denji really has no solid mindset telling him that his dreams can be achieved. Denji tells himself that he would be happy with his miserable life as long as he was able to dream alongside Pochita. The problem is, the Yakuza and the zombie devil take away even that sliver of freedom from him. The most important thing about Pochita's sacrifice, then, is what he tells Denji, that he's always loved listening to Denji fantasize, but now he gives Denji a mission: show me your dreams. Or actually, in the translation for the anime, it says dream singular instead of dreams plural, like in the official manga translation. In my opinion, the plural form is better because it's referencing the many different dreams Denji has, and it connects to a certain very important conversation much later in the story, but the same basic idea is conveyed. Denji needs to not just dream, but make his dreams into reality. Before fighting the zombies, Denji's thoughts actually slip into a defeatist mindset, despite what Pochita had just told him. I'll explain the reason for this in a minute. Denji thinks to himself that the Yakuza should have been happy with what they already had, and that dreaming of a better life is what led to them becoming zombies controlled by a demon, which we can all probably agree is worse than what they had before. He then thinks that he might be the same, and that he shouldn't have even dreamed of any life better than the one he had with Pochita. But his thoughts turn around when he realizes that everyone dreams, and that it's not a bad thing. Dreaming is envisioning a better world. It's what allows someone to change their life for the better, and it's what Pochita told him to do. So if anyone's gonna stand in the way of that, they can die. Denji tears up the zombie Yakuza members and their zombie devil master, literally breaking himself free from the system he has learned he shouldn't be accepting, and symbolically fighting against the concept of being controlled by others. He has seemingly snapped out of his original mindset. Now, any system getting in the way of his dreams is one that he is willing to violently rebel against, and Pochita has given him the means to do that, both by giving Denji his mission and by literally giving Denji his chainsaw powers. However, there's still one aspect of Denji's character that we haven't covered. Denji is lonely. He has Pochita, but Pochita is not a human, and the only people Denji has ever known are either dead or see him only as a tool to their own ends. He has no human connection, which is why getting a girlfriend becomes the central part of the dream he talks about. Denji's connection with Pochita, though, is still emblematic of how his mind works with interpersonal connections in some ways. First, while this cute chainsaw dog is probably the main thing stopping Denji from wanting to just die, it also kind of keeps him in the hands of the Yakuza. I do think that Denji is generally inclined to accept unfair conditions anyways, but in the case of working for the Yakuza, Pochita is a big part of why Denji can feel comfortable working for them. It shows that when Denji is in a situation he shouldn't be accepting, he will be more likely to accept it if he has access to some sort of interpersonal connection. The other important thing is how Denji deals with losing Pochita. Denji had worked endlessly for the Yakuza in order to achieve their promise of freedom, only for them to betray and brutally murder him once they thought they could benefit from killing him. Then, Pochita sacrifices himself to save Denji, telling him to make his dreams into reality. After climbing out of the dumpster, Denji has all the reason to immediately annihilate the Yakuza and start his quest to eat toast with jam and get a girlfriend. But instead, his thoughts slip into doubting that he should have let himself dream at all. These thoughts are prompted by the loss of Pochita. Denji thinks to himself that he should have been happy with his life just because Pochita was with him. Denji's loneliness cuts deep, and his immediate reaction after losing someone close to him is thinking that his own desires are not valid. This will be very important later on. At the end of episode 1, however, it seems like Denji's loneliness might start to go away soon. Pochita is gone, but someone new shows up immediately to seemingly fill the gap that had been left. Except, I need to talk about the Devil Hunter Agency and Makima. It might be unclear to some that Denji's living condition is still bad. At least, it didn't really click for me the first time I read the manga until a while later. After all, he has access to amazing food, bathing, much better housing, more people around him, women, and a second testicle. But really, he is living off of pretty minimal standards of having housing and food. And he is still fundamentally not free. He has to follow someone's orders or he will be executed. Just like when he was a slave to the Yakuza. His master just appears to be a bit nicer. And sure, nothing that Makima has ordered him to do has really been bad, and she doesn't seem to have any ulterior motives, but there's something about her eyes. And what is she doing in this one part of the opening? Denji's life is certainly improved, but it is still not desirable, and this will become more clear as the series continues. But hold on a second. If Denji had learned to not accept such conditions when he fought the Yakuza, why does he blindly let himself become Makima's dog now? Well, after defeating the zombies, Denji is free from the Yakuza. But there's a new problem. Pochita is gone. Denji already had a massive desire for human connection, and now he has lost the only real connection he ever had. Breaking free from the Yakuza did not solve his loneliness. In fact, it seems to have made it worse. And so, the first thing on his mind is to fall into the arms of the first woman he sees. Once again, he falls into another situation in which he is not free. Hopefully I've given you a bit more groundwork of how to understand the themes of this series. It's one of my favorites. Denji is one of my favorite guys ever, and that's mainly because of what I've talked about in this video. All of these themes show up again and again throughout Chainsaw Man, and I think it's hella cool. But most of all, thank you for watching this video. If you've already read the Chainsaw Man manga, I got some videos on later parts of that, and if not, I've made videos on some other series as well, so check that out. I'll make another video at some point, and it would be so cool if you watched that one too. Bye!